Hey everyone, Christmas is coming and I thought I'd make a video about avoiding Christmas stress using Chinese medicine techniques. Hope you're doing well. I'm Mary Hopkinson, a herbalist and an acupuncturist. And I know this is a very stressful time of the year.
Oh, Santa!
There's lots of reasons why that can be, and sometimes it's good to just take stock and take a minute to realise, hang on a minute, it's okay that I feel stressed.
Hey Damo, what did you ask for Christmas?
New dildo, AK-47.
Jimmy Barnes! My parents back from captivity. Cocaine! Oh, Jimmy Barnes!
I'd just like more friends, please. I'm lonely.
There can be lots of reasons why this is a difficult time of the year or why it's a stressful time of the year. For some people, it can be financial, just simply financial, right? I've got a pressure to do all these things. I've got to buy all this extra food. I know this is going to cost me. They might love to do it, but they just struggling to pay the bills, struggling to pay for the things. You might have to buy a lot of gifts for people, and, you know, family and things like that. And I mean, let alone inflation, right? So we have a massive amount of inflation. I'm making this video 2022 and, you know, it's difficult to do that. And I think part of it is just the way to get around that is to, you know, to share that load with the people that it matters with. And because a lot of those people are probably experiencing that as well. And there might be expectations that you're putting on yourself that you could just avoid doing. Like, you know, you could say to your family, hey, should we all just not buy presents this year, or put a limit? Like, let's all do something like buy one gift, you know, for one person rather than gifts for everybody. Or, you know, let's do a re-gift or a second-hand gift. Like, I know some families who do that, and that can be really fun rather than feeling like I have to buy all new things, right? So you say, oh, you've got a $10 limit and you have to buy something at a second-hand store or re-gift something that you have. So it can be just a fun, different way of doing that sort of thing. Another thing that can make things stressful for people is like the emotions of the season. So it can be a time, I mean, think about it from a Western perspective, culturally. Like, I remember just having a massive expectation of Christmas as a kid, right? Oh, Santa's coming, you know, that kind of thing. Like it's building towards this magical time of the year where all your dreams are going to come true. And then as you get older, your dreams don't come true. Santa gets, you know, less and less real. And the reality of life takes over. And it depends on how you view this. And some people they don't care, and they're just like, no, Marie, that's not what I think about. Why would you have that expectation that all your dreams are going to come true? But, you know, for many, many years, that used to be how I would think about Christmas. Like, oh, you know, the magic of Christmas, like something just different is going to happen. Like, you know, especially when it was like looking for a partner or something, and I'd be like thinking, well, that guy that I really like, he's definitely going to tell me he likes me at Christmas. This is the time, like the time of love, or, you know, these expectations that something's going to happen, and that can then lead to disappointment. So you've got these heightened expectations. And it can also be like just the expectation of what's going to happen on the day, and I'm going to see this family and this and that.
Festive is your heritage. It's part of who you are.
That's why I hate it.
And then the next day happens, Boxing Day comes, and you're like exhausted. And, you know, you've worked and worked and worked for this day to happen, sometimes cooking the food or all the things that need to be done. And then it just kind of just stops, and this drop off, right? So this is building, and then this drop off, and it can just be like, oh, what? Like, now I have to deal with the fallout and the clean up. The house needs to be cleaned up. The kids are all, you know, on a sugar high and going crazy. That kind of stuff. So there can be that sort of stuff. It also is a really emotionally charged time for people because it reminds us of who isn't around anymore. And that's a really difficult one, you know. So if you've lost people that are close to you, Christmas and birthdays are the time where you look around, like, where are those people? Like, if you've lost a parent, you've lost a grandparents, a best friend, whoever. Like, and the older you get, the more people you've lost in life, and it can be really hard. So that's also part of it, and just to be aware that that's part of what other people might be experiencing as well. So you might not be experiencing that. I'm not saying you have to then have a terrible Christmas because other people are experiencing a loss around that. But that can also lead people to be angry around Christmas, or bah humbug, or lose their Christmas spirit. But just to just, it can add to their difficulty around that time, because they're like, oh, all these other people are experiencing this joy, this, oh, ding dong, you know, the stupid Christmas songs, and I mean, let alone the Mariah Carey Christmas song, you're just probably just sick of that. It can be difficult for people if they've lost someone that's close to them. So that's something to consider, right? Not everyone's going to experience Christmas in the same way that you do. So what can we do with all this stress that's there, right? You know, the expectations that we have, the expense of Christmas, inflation going up, the emotionally just charged aspects of it, the potential disappointment, the previous year's disappointments. And I mean, depends on where you are in life, you know, like, can also be very awkward if you've got family that you resent seeing. You're like, oh, I have to deal with them on this one day. I hate them. I don't want to say you hate them, but, you know, you might, you know. And another thing that makes this all worse is alcohol. People get really drunk on Christmas usually. And I mean, then there's also people that want to be with their family but can't be with their family because they have to work. And, you know, they have to make that sacrifice, and they might work. Like I have lots of friends and family that are like paramedic, or in the police, or they, you know, they're doing public service things, doctors, nurses, that kind of stuff. You know, some people have to work, and or they might work in a mine site or whatever they're doing, right? And someone has to has to do that job, and they can't sort of not do it because it's a necessary job, and they might feel really sad because they're just going to be by themselves, and, you know, oh, everyone else is having a good time and I'm kind of, you know, missing out. So what can we do around this time? What can you do? I'm going to give you some tips and stuff, and I'm going to tie them into some Chinese medicine things as well. So one of the things is, I would say, you need to take stock of those expectations, like identify them. And that's why I mentioned all these things, because sometimes you don't realize they're just there. You just think, oh no, Christmas is coming around again. You don't realize that it's triggering you to think about the loss that you've had, or to think about those past expectations or stuff like that that's been there. You know, it's also culturally relevant to how you've been brought up to think about Christmas. Like, I'm a well-grown adult now, and I still think of Christmas as that fun time as I was as a little kid. And
There we go.
there's still something in me that expects the magic of Christmas to occur.
What would you like for Christmas, little boy?
I don't know.
In some way. And I know that it won't, because it hasn't ever. But I kind of feel like it will. Now, you might have a kid and you might just sort of relive the magic of Christmas through them. And that's something really fun. Like, you know, if you do have a kid, no, I don't have a kid. I've got a nephew, two nephews and a niece now. And, like, I really enjoy buying gifts for them now, because it's kind of fun for me to do that. And so, you know, this would be my next thing, is if you do have the means to help somebody else, do that. There's plenty of parents that can't afford to buy their own kids gifts. And there's ways of you being able to do that are in a nice, you know, way of doing that. You might have a neighbour that, you know, you might just, you know, and you might, you know, buy their kids a nice gift or something, or talk to their parents, like, you know, how can I help you out at Christmas? You might donate to a charity, you know, that kind of stuff. And that brings me to my next point, is to find some way that you can help is a really good thing to be able to do, right? I have spent many Christmases, even one Christmas, I sacrificed doing my own Christmas with my own family to run a Christmas lunch for some university students that I was friends with who didn't have anywhere to go on Christmas. And I said, I'll make you a proper Christmas dinner, proper Christmas lunch. And they all come around to my house. There's probably about 6 or 7 of us. And, you know, I made it. I don't even know how I did the ham, but I did a ham. And I made a Christmas turkey and all these kinds of weird, wonderful foods that I worked out how to cook. And it was bloody hot, because it's hot in Australia, 40 degrees sometimes. We all sat around in this air-conditioned room and had the Christmas lunch. And then I went off and had Christmas with my own family as well after that. But, like, that can be something that you can do now. It doesn't have to be that. I also, for many, many years, I've run a homeless food thing where I was, doing a mobile homeless food van where we would make, do stuff for them. And sometimes I'll bring my guitar and play Christmas songs to them or something like that and have fun doing that. You can volunteer is what I'm saying. You can do something, and there's lots of groups and community organisations out there. So, you can go on Facebook and ask, does anyone know where I can volunteer for Christmas? You can even just sort of volunteer at your, your local op shop or something like that. I'm sure that there's organisations, local churches often have these things, community groups. There's a big day in Perth where I live, something like biggest Christmas day or something, and people can volunteer. And especially if you are at that point where you don't have your friends and family around you, and you feel like on Christmas Day I'm going to be at a loss, like as in I'm going to just be sitting there twiddling my thumbs, you could avoid that potential feeling of just sitting around by yourself by actually purposefully planning to go and help and do something with somebody else. Or you might have some friends or family that are kind of in the same boat, and you might, or some friends, and say, hey, we all hate our families, let's have a Christmas lunch together and let's do something together on that day or some other time around there. So help someone else. That'd be my best advice. Like, your problems will usually recede into oblivion when you are around other people with worse problems than you. And, sometimes that's what we need. And I'm not saying it's good to have people with worse problems than you, but it does put your stuff in perspective, and that can be very useful and helpful to you. And, it helps them and it helps you. So you can do that. The third thing that I would say, and this is more of a Chinese medicine thing, is be in the habit of doing stuff that's going to release that stagnation. So stagnation builds up because there's nowhere for it to go. So it comes in, and like these frustrations, these annoyances, these feelings that we have, these ideas towards Christmas, all the things I mentioned before, and it builds up. So to have an outlet for it to come out, one of those outlets can be exercise. One of those outlets can be singing. Singing actually helps. So if you don't enjoy Christmas carols, sing something else. Singing actually helps because it moves the energy through your lungs and kind of pushes it out. Laughing helps. Find something that you enjoy watching, a comedy, and have a good laugh. That is a really good way. So singing, laughing, and exercise all kind of helps to kind of move stagnation. Okay. The next thing that happens around this silly season, around this time, is this party time.
I want people to cut loose.
Party lifestyle time. Lots of parties. 2, 3. Now, you might be on one side thinking, I never get invited to those parties. That's not me. But if you do get invited to a lot of these functions and parties, then that can cause a lot of detriment to your body as well, because you're eating party foods and you might feel like, I always put on a lot of weight around Christmas. How do I avoid doing that? Well, doing regular exercise will help you, especially if you've not been doing that before. So keep up that regular exercise, or start doing regular exercise. Even if you just go for a walk, I would recommend 45 minutes a day walking no matter what. Just try and make a time for it and try and do it. As in do it, not try to do it. Go and do it. Okay, and then how you can avoid this kind of difficulty with all these parties is to make a plan that in the month of Christmas, you eat well when you're at home. So you're very strict in what you eat at home. And the first way to start doing that is to not buy this stuff into the house. You're pushing your trolley around those shops and you're like, look at these delicious Christmas fudges, these delicious Christmas foods. And sometimes what happens is I buy them for gifts, and then I've eaten them before I've given them away to people. So I know myself now, I'm better off just purchasing them right before the gift time. Or what I do have self-control, so I don't just always do that. But what I do is I buy them and I'll put them in a different area. So when I open the cupboard, they're not just looking at me going, hello, Christmas fudge that you bought for Auntie so-and-so. Why don't you eat it now? And you can just go to the store and buy another one, right? Late at night I don't know why we open the cupboard late at night, but we do sometimes. So if you don't have that stuff where you can see it, or it's, it's not tempting you, or you don't have it in the house, you will avoid that. And eat regular foods when you're at home that are high protein foods. So meat is good. Hard-boiled eggs are one of my favourite foods to give to myself and patients when they are saying, I don't have time for breakfast, or, I'm not sure what to have. Like, rather than having a sandwich or something with carbs, if you have a hard-boiled egg, there's, you know, you're not going to get sort of these blood sugar spikes and stuff like that. And you get this satisfaction, and you're not going to, you know, you just generally, I love hard-boiled eggs. Such a great little thing. Sometimes I even put them in my handbag. Like, you know, obviously eat them that day, but put it in a little Ziploc bag and put it into your handbag. It's such a great little snack. It's like a banana, you know. That's my tip to you. Hard-boiled eggs are really good. So eat lighter when you're at home and control the things you can control. Then when you're out, you can kind of enjoy the things when you're going out. Now, if you go to parties and you find yourself eating a lot of stuff that you later on regret, and you think, why did I do all that? Part of it is probably because you are hungry. So if you had your hard-boiled egg before you went to the party, you probably wouldn't feel as hungry, right? So some of these things are like, oh, let's come to drinks and snacks at 4 p.m. Well, that's just before dinner time's probably 6 p.m. So of course you're going to be hungry then. So if there are protein things at the thing, have that. Have some water. Have plenty of water. Make sure you're properly hydrated, because sometimes we eat food because we're actually thirsty. So if you make sure you've had your quota of water and you're nice and full with water, you probably won't feel as hungry. These are some of the things you can do. Now, those snack trays are still going to go around, and if you're not eating all that stuff at home, you know, Christmas is a time to enjoy yourself. I think it's good to do that. But I know there's been seasons in my life where, like, the lead up to Christmas, 2 weeks before Christmas, it's almost like there's a party every week. There's a work function, then there's this function, there's that, there's Johnny's little party, and there's someone's birthdays in the mix as well there. And next thing you know, you're having too much of the good life, and you can have too much of the good life, and then you might regret that. So these are some of my tips to help you avoid the stress of Christmas. So, you know, like, have a look at your expectations. Be kind to other people, you know, and be aware that everyone is in this emotionally charged environment around Christmas time, which I feel like it builds and builds and builds. You know, and then you find yourself in the store and you're like, 2 people are fighting over the last toy because you really want it for your kid or something like that. Or, you know, you're frustrated because you can't afford to buy something, you know, for someone, and you wish that you could. Sometimes having those conversations is actually more powerful than just stressing about it, and letting people know, hey, like letting your family know, hey, we're struggling this year and you're lucky to get I don't have any kids, so maybe you shouldn't say it like that. You're lucky to get one present, little Johnny. You should be grateful. But for them to understand that without feeling bad about it, but the weight of that, right? And sometimes the expectation is what you think that they perceive, right? They could be happy with a cardboard box that's wrapped up if they're a baby. They don't need all this lavished gifts upon them. But you might feel that you wanted to give them that because you never had that when you were a kid. And how would you know what you had when you were a kid? Because you can't sometimes even remember. So, you know, there's that, like, you know, I mean, buy a smaller Santa sack. I remember when I was a kid, Mum used to have a big pillow slip, and I would expect it to be all full of gifts because, I don't know, you see that on TV, oh, Santa's come, and they had little stockings, and my dad would always, like, tell us that, you know, we were getting the rotten potato if we didn't, you know, a lump of coal. Apparently he's an English guy, and that's what he would say. If you were naughty, you'd get a lump of coal or a rotten potato in your Santa sack. So we always thought that that's, you know, what that was the alternative. So we're grateful to get our presents. Yeah, so I understand that these can be stressful for many, many reasons and multifaceted reasons. And to be aware that, hey, we're all in this world together, and like I might be able to help someone else and they might help me at a different time in life. Be kind to each other. You know, and be aware, you know. I mean, I just know, like, I think it's probably worse in Australia maybe because it's hot. And, you know, sometimes you're like, it's really hot in the car and you're driving around trying to find a car park, and it's like, you know, you're frustrated and it's hot. I was recently reading some research about, you know, when people have more accidents and anger, people are much more angry in the hotter weather. So if you're in the other part of the world, in the UK or the US, I'm always envious because I've always wanted a white Christmas. I've never had one. It's always been a 40-degree Celsius Christmas, which is a very hot Christmas usually where I live. Yeah, it's probably that. So if you're in Australia and you've, you know, just be aware that the weather makes people more angry and more frustrated in that way as well. But those things that you do, like your exercise, the singing, the laughing, that helps to move that chi and it stops that frustration kind of building up. So be aware that this stuff is going to come in just because it's Christmas time. The frustrations are going to come in. So I hope this video has been useful and helpful to you. And if it has, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear from you. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And I hope that you do have a lovely festive season and enjoy what you can enjoy about it. Thank you.